Hi, everyone. I am super excited to be back. This is Cyndi, and we're here for the Living in Oneness Experience podcast. And I've just been having the best time. If this is the first time we've met, hello, I love you. And I do invite you, not right now, because I want you to be here and I want you to meet one of the brightest lights in the world, Lisa. Hi, Lisa. And then I invite you to go back, because what we're doing in the Living in Oneness Experience journey is we're taking you on a little bit of an adventure. And I'll tell you right off the bat, what you will discover as you hang out with me and all of our guests is, number one, that you've been here because you've been called. There's no question. If you haven't already turned me off, something brought you here. And in the very first episode of the Living in Oneness Experience podcast, my friend Ron and I talked about that invitation, how we are continuously being called to this awareness, this awakening process. And then from there, I moved into an amazing conversation with a lot of kind of little tools and tricks and practices that you could do, in the moment, wherever you are. With my friend Linda, we talked about the goal. Like, why? What's the purpose? Why are we here? Who would want to live in oneness? What does that all mean? You're going to find that out in that podcast, that second episode. So be sure to check it out and let us know all along the way, what you gained from each of these experiences. Then in the third podcast with my friend Cyndi, it was the Cyndi and Cyndi show. We talked about one of the most powerful tools in this living in oneness awakening process called the pause. And to give you just a little hint, I've had another friend, we've talked about it often. The hardest thing that any of us can ever do as a human is nothing. And to step back and to rest and to recognize that more often than not, we're just getting in the way of our bliss and everything we seek. We talked about that in the third episode. And today, I'm getting chills. Oh, I often get chills when something amazing is going to happen. So pause. Lisa Natoli, I met towards the end of 2017. I wrote an email to about 20,000 people, and I said, I'm going to make 2018 the year of the miracle. And somebody wrote me back, and she said, well, if you want to have a miraculous life, then you got to meet Lisa and do her 40-day journey to transformation course. And something inside me lit up, and I did. I found the 40-day course. It's pretty easy to find. I did the course. Nothing about my life has remained the same. Within months of taking that first course, I started to work for the Teachers of God Foundation, a foundation that she and her husband began. And I now have, I often say to Lisa, there's such an amazing blessing that I get paid to hang out with Lisa and with Bill. And Lisa and Bill are the creators of the Living in Oneness experience. So if at any point, you decide to take a dive into learning more about, the people that you're meeting on this podcast and what happens there, then just know that it comes through Lisa and Bill. And with that, Lisa, I promised in all these podcasts, it's more about the teaching and the presence and the love than it is about, our biographies. But that being said, and before we start talking about our topic today, which is symbols and words and idols and how they're important and where they're not, what would you like everybody here to know about you and who you are? and why you love being here.
Well, the first thing is I just love you so much, Cyndi. And I know, big hug. And yeah, I don't really care what people think about me or want to know about me. I mean, yeah, it's just been I think that's part of the problem. I think part of the problem is our identification with the bio. And so I think, when I have to write a formal bio, I'm a spiritual teacher. Have been with A Course in Miracles for 30 something years. I see myself as a healer. That's something that I kind of my self-imposed term, which I really just felt like, and I'm going to claim that. And that's something that I encourage people to do. But yeah, just, I never know how to answer that question. Like, what would I like people to know? I'd like people to know that I love you.
I love us. Yeah. Love is what you are, right? So when I first met Lisa, she was a die-hard 100% student and teacher of the Course in Miracles. And I know you're still madly in love with the Course in Miracles. And as a facilitator and as a member of Living in Oneness, we've merged that Course in Miracles teaching with the non-dual tradition. And one of the things that's really come out of this and what we wanted to talk about really is, I was going to say the danger, but there's really no danger, but how getting stuck on the word or the symbol or the idol or the specific tradition can limit our experience of oneness. I would even love to know tell people about how you discovered that. I was sitting in this hook. There was this moment in time where you got that aha. I was trapped. It's not the tradition, is it? So would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, well, you invited me to come on and talk about symbols, and I love that topic. And I found A Course in Miracles in 1992. I felt a pull towards it immediately. I was living in New York City. I was working in publishing. Had always my whole life been someone who just was kind of figured out how to kind of, do well in school and how to, just kind of live life, I guess, by the rules and have fun. And I was going, something's missing, something's not right here. And so when I found A Course in Miracles, I was equally attracted to it and equally repulsed by it because of the Christian terminology. But it's like you with the Year of Miracles. When you said 2018, I wanted to know the truth. I had already read Wayne Dyer's book, You'll See It When You Believe It. And that was really my first introduction into metaphysics. Like, I remember reading that book. I think it came out in like September 1989. I think I was 21. And it was like, what? The world out there is coming from my thoughts? What? Like, it was this moment of, it completely flipped my mind. I was like, he was saying nothing's solid. It's all coming from your thoughts. It's just a mirror reflection. So that was my first, because up until then, I'm just living life. I just like, oh, things happen and you do the best you can and you get a job and you pay your bills. And sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy. And so I already had it in my mind that there was something else. And so when A Course in Miracles came along, it was like, oh, I could use A Course in Miracles. I mean, couldn't we all? Like, yeah, I'd love to have miracles in my life. And I was immediately like confused by all the different people. I don't know what to say about it, except for there's God, Holy Spirit, Jesus, Christ, ego, self. Um, so I was like, well, which one am I supposed to be talking to? So I feel always like a child. Like I always feel like a sense of, I look at things logically, and I think that comes from my dad. Like I grew up really having a dad who said that doesn't make any sense. He was constantly pointing stuff out to me as a kid, like the media and the news and the world, and he really taught me, like, don't take things at face value. Like, look at it, just look. It doesn't make any sense. So I had that already in me, and I felt such a pull towards wanting to know the truth about myself. Like, there was so much in the A Course in Miracles that I thought, well, I don't know what this is, but I would like to have an experience of perfect freedom and permanent happiness, which is what it offers. And I just felt I have to do what it says. I just have to follow along. I have to do the workbook lessons. And I have to use the language and the symbols that it gives to me. But my mind was so logical. I remember being in Course in Miracle groups, and I love Jesus. I do. I when I found A Course in Miracles, I started studying the Bible. I started studying a lot of metaphysical books. I started kind of looking at the man Jesus from 2000 years ago. So, but I didn't understand this idea of the risen Christ, and that you have to accept Christ as your savior, and all the religious terminology about it. So I used to say to people, well, they say, well, you have to ask the Holy Spirit. I'm like, well, is the Holy Spirit Christ? Is it Jesus? Is it God? Why don't I just go directly to God? Jesus did. Jesus didn't need a Holy Spirit when he lived on earth 2000 years ago. And people are like, well, you do. You can't get there without going through the Holy Spirit. So this childlike curiosity in me was like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. But okay, you guys seem to know something I don't know. So I'll do it. So I spent years and years trying to, quote unquote, do it right. I kept trying to, like, figure out, okay, is that the ego talking? Is that, which voice am I listening to? Is it God talking? Is it Christ? Is it Jesus? There's a lot of complexity going on there. That's too much thinking. But I kept thinking, I have to do it right. I have to really just follow along, and I'll have an awakening. And of course, I had glimpses throughout the years, and major things shifted. Alcoholism fell away, cigarette smoking fell away. I started to be happier. I started to really feel a sense of lightness, but I still felt I'm not there yet. I'm just missing something. So then I would buckle down on the symbols again. I'd be like, okay, and then I went years with said, okay, forget it. I'm not using Jesus anymore. I took everything religious off my website. And then I thought I was being punished because my life was still very difficult. I was still in fear. I was still experiencing limitation. I had no money. I was, whatever. And then the mind says, oh, that's because you're not acknowledging Jesus. So then I was like, oh, I have to put Jesus back on my website, and I have to start using Jesus. So for me, this is, when you asked me to come on and talk about symbols, I was like, oh, this is a topic near and dear to my heart, because I've come to realize that A Course in Miracles really is written in language for those who find it. The non-duality seekers don't need the Christian language, because all paths lead to the same thing: awareness of our true self, our true nature, which is happiness and peace. And so for me, really coming into the simplicity of non-dual teachings really brought me into the direct experience. And then I was able to go back and look at A Course in Miracles again and not get all twisted up in all the different words and symbols. But that's kind of like where I started and where I am now.
Okay, so if you don't mind, for our audience, just came up, I'm thinking that not everybody knows what we mean when we say symbol. Can you give us a definition of a symbol?
Well, symbols are everything. They're words. They're like reality doesn't have any symbols. It doesn't have a form. It doesn't have names. It doesn't have labels. It doesn't have meaning. So when I say reality, it's, you can't even think about it, because the thinking mind requires symbols and form and labels and words. And so reality just is. When you say God is, it means, it does mean that. It just means eternal, changeless. You could call it life, awareness, presence, consciousness. It doesn't have a form. Like God, when most people think of God, they think of a man. They think, and the Course in Miracles uses he and him, and Son of God. And so these are symbols for what it stands for, which is oneness. Oneness doesn't have a symbol. You can't imagine oneness. So a symbol is, it's, you know, there's a part in the Course in Miracles that says, what is the role of words in healing? It says, strictly speaking, words play no part at all. And it says that words are actually symbols of symbols. Like we are twice removing itself, is how A Course in Miracles says it, from the truth. So a symbol is just anything. It's any, like, to call myself a girl, that's a symbol. It's not what I am. It's a label. It sort of stands in place for what is kind of behind it, I guess. Like, so it's the temporary symbols are temporary. They're not they're just can be helpful. But if you attach yourself to them and think, well, that's the goal, you're just going to be confused forever. So
yeah, so it's an interesting thing, because I've gone through a lot of different paths, and from decades I kept clinging to, Reiki. That's, as long as I keep doing Reiki healing, or EFT, and then dove into the Course in Miracles, body code practice, like mastering alchemy. I went spiritualism. I went Christianity. I went and dived into all these different programs or communities or groups in the world, right, that said we have the answer. And I felt something stir everywhere in each of those circumstances, right? The thing is, it's my understanding, and I'd love for your space, is that truth is still, it's quiet, it's wordless. And then, we rise from truth or consciousness or isness, whatever we want to call it, right? To have these experiences. And so here we are, consciousness experience itself, God experiencing itself. And there's this illusion of duality, and there needs to be a way to communicate through the gap. And there is this yearning or this inner desire to know what sits underneath that, you know? And so it feels like as soon as we leave the stillness, we've lost our ability to just be in communication with the other parts of ourselves. And so we create these symbols or these programs or these churches or these temples and these magical symbols and idols to, you know, we somehow have forgotten that the truth is who we are. Yeah. And so we've painted a picture and hid the truth in something that's outside of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like a
And a
word.
symbol too is that there's such a good explanation. And, you know, when you think about symbols, like they're markings, they're, you know, like if you take a symbol of a musical note. So if you had someone give you a sheet of music and it has all these symbols on them, some people wouldn't understand it. Some people, they're markings on a page. But if somebody actually understands symbols, they hear the note in their minds. They can actually, if you gave somebody a sheet of music who was musical, they would immediately, the mind would start literally like boom, they can actually hear it, they can see it on the page. And it's the same thing with the words on written words, is the love. Like, let's just say that I feel so much love, and I want to express it, and I write it. So the symbols are like the words that I type out, and it kind of, I can never express fully, even in words. Let's just say the words are coming out of my mouth that I say I love you. That's good, but it still kind of reduces itself down even from the love that I feel. I could never put in words how I feel, how I want to express it. So I do the best I can, and I try to get as close as I can. But so when we recognize that and we realize, oh, okay, like there's something going on beyond the marking, the symbol, the word, that's where we want to live.
As I was listening to you, and this was exciting, you know, one of the things that we focus on in living in oneness experience is portals, you know, opening a door into truth. And so when we understand that the church or the Course in Miracles or a book written by Rupert Spira or listening to Mooji at a satsang or Michael Singer, Adyashanti, or Muslim, Hindu traditions, whatever, Sufism, Kabbalah, you know, any of these different religious or spiritual or truth teachings in the world, if we look at them all as musical notes, like you said, an opportunity, and the ones that are most useful to us tend to draw us, they invite us in, right? When we understand that what they are portals into truth and not truth themselves, we are able to rest underneath the words. Mm-hmm. And that really, in essence, is when I heard inside that this is the conversation we were going to have today, it was that. Love whatever it is. Love the words, you know. Love the church. Love the Course in Miracles book, mm-hmm. or the non-dual book, or the satsang you're sitting in, whatever it is you're being called to. but understand that all of it is a finger pointing to the moon, not the moon, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really what these symbols are.
Yeah.
Now, for you, in your experience, from the way I've heard you tell the story, and I've heard you tell it once or twice, I hang out with you a little bit or a lot. The way I see it and the way it's showing up for me is that for many years, you got maybe a little caught in the symbols and didn't sink underneath into the consciousness. And I would love for this audience, this is a different, audience, for you to talk about that experience, not the moment, because I don't believe you ever rejected your decades of being, a Master Course in Miracles student. But when the door opened into understanding, it wasn't the story that the Course told, but what was sitting underneath it. Would you tell your welcoming story in whatever way inspires you?
Yeah. Well, I like that you mentioned the portals in Living in Oneness. And, Bill Free and I decided, we didn't really decide. He had the idea at first, and he came to me and said, what do you think about creating this 12-week program that helps people to have a direct experience? Like we'll use A Course in Miracles and we'll use the non-dual teachings, Rupert Spira's book, The Nature of Consciousness. And I was still at that point that he asked me that, still very new into the non-dual teaching. So I don't know, like somewhere along the way over, like during that time, I just started saying yes to everything. And I'm very grateful that I did, because when I saw and have seen the changes that have happened to people in Living in Oneness, in the Living in Oneness experience, to go through those portals, to go through those doors and let go of the concepts, like it just makes me so happy when I hear, like, and it's the same experience. It's like, behind the scenes when we're with everyone who's going through those 12 weeks, to hear people have these ahas. And that's what happened for me, is when I made a decision, like, I don't know the actual, I don't have like this one awakening story, and I don't have this one moment. All I know is that at a certain point, I recognized I was trying to get it right, and I was trying to be like, not for anyone else, but I thought I had to be a good Course in Miracles student. I thought I had to, the reason I wasn't having an experience of consistent peace and perfect happiness and permanent joy, I must be doing something wrong, because that's all the Course in Miracles says. It's like, I'm responsible for what I see. So I'm still seeing like up and down and left and right and vacillation and going into worry and doubt, and then having brief moments of peace and then losing it. And then I kept thinking, well, I must be missing something. I must not be doing it correctly. So I was always like buckling down. I did not make my journey public. I didn't care what anyone else thought about my journey. It was so private for me, where I just was like, what am I missing? What like, what is it? Like, come on. And then I got sick. Like, I got sick with physical symptoms that went on for, I don't even know. It was like 2012. And then in 2018, and this is probably the story, is when Bill Free invited me to welcome everything exactly as it is. And that to me was it. I see that as sort of my moment of awakening, even though nothing really changed in that moment. But what happened was, it was so just like, welcome everything exactly as it is. Okay. That feels better than fighting. And it feels better than attacking myself for not getting it and for not healing and for still being stuck. So that was kind of the journey, where I guess I just started to be myself. I realized I'm done trying to be a Course in Miracles student, and I'm done trying to get it right, and I'm done um, trying to reach a place. I think that was a big part of it. Like, I had so many experiences during those years of physical pain and symptoms that I literally thought today's my last day. Like, I thought I'm dying. Something's definitely wrong with me. Um, I didn't know what. The doctors, I had tests run on me, and they were like, you test healthy. Your blood tests are all coming back healthy, but they're looking at me and they were like, but something is definitely wrong. I couldn't talk. Talking was very difficult. My eyesight was I was going blind. Um, Major light sensitivity. I could not, even on a cloudy day, it was hard to be outside and inside. Um, and so I kept feeling like the thing I've been searching for and trying to reach to, I don't have any time left. I just don't have time anymore. And so I said, fuck it. Like, that was really where my turnaround was, where I was like, fuck it. I'm done being a sick person. With whatever remaining time I have left, I'm going to be happy. I am not going to try to get this anymore. And I don't care about being a spiritual teacher. That's why when you asked me about my bio at the beginning, it's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that question anymore, because I didn't care about any of that anymore. I just felt like, okay, like, I'm not going to waste one more second of my life in doubt, guilt, anger, confusion. I, if it's my last day here, I'm gonna eat what I want that makes me happy. I'm gonna read books. I'm gonna do what makes me happy. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to show up. Um, and so a lot of things fell away after that. Like, a lot of things that I was doing and I thought I was supposed to be doing, I don't have to do them anymore. So a lot of changes happened, and I didn't die, like, and of course the body has an expiration for all of us, so that's not ever going to be the goal, but I don't have any of those thoughts anymore. None. And I could go any second. You could too. Anybody could. Like, we're seeing this in the world right now, is people just passing unexpectedly. So you realize, okay, well, that's not the goal, to like extend the body life, but the goal is and that's the thing. Like, I went through the portal without calling it a portal, but I had this experience of really being so present and loving everything exactly as it is. The physical symptoms, the pain. Maybe I'm going blind. Okay, gonna welcome that too. Okay, I can't talk. Okay, maybe I'll never talk. Okay, welcome that too. Everything got welcomed. And I stopped trying to fix, change, heal, or improve anything. That was really the turnaround for me, where I was like, I'm done seeking. Spiritual search over. Like, it was just like, I'm done. And in that, I found it. Like, it was always here. It's always here. Our true self. And it tries to make itself known, but the mind is so busy trying to improve, fix, heal the body that we miss it. So you said it earlier, Cyndi, is that when we can still ourselves, the thing we are it starts to reveal itself. It starts to shine forth. And so I don't even know what question you asked me, but
but okay, but I've got, so I'm going to set a stage now. I'm so excited because I can feel beings all over the world are with us right now, right? Or in the eternal moment, which is now. So we've moved in, and what we've stated is that the truth is not the words we're speaking, right? So Lisa and I, we both are very focused and dedicated to this being in this truth and this consciousness, in this knowing that all is well right now. And we've talked about symbols. So and I'm going to use the word healing now, because the one thing you claimed when I asked you to introduce yourself is that I am a healer. So let's do some healing. So if you look in the world right now, it appears that a lot of healing is needed. Yeah. And depending on where you look, nobody can quite agree whether we're in the metaphysical arena or we're in Western medicine arena, whether we're on the right side or the left side, what part of the country we're in, what our belief structures. Nobody in the world of form, in the global place where symbols are believed to be true, can agree how to heal. And what I have been watching, okay. I'm going to ask you a question.
The first thing I just want to say is that when you said, when I look out into the world, I see there's a lot of healing, I actually don't see that at all. So I think that's the first point. Like, and it doesn't mean that I don't see, I mean, I read the news, I'm a subscriber to the New York Times. I see there's suffering. Like I see people who are disconnected from their true self. So I know exactly why people are experiencing confusion, depression, loneliness, sadness. And so as a healer, which we all are, it's healing literally means whole. The word heal means whole. That's the root word of it. It's the meaning of it. And so when we take away the complexity of what the world calls healing, so if health, HEAL, whole, health is wholeness, and healing is a return to wholeness. And if you're healthy, you're whole. So we can see that this is available. It's just not, it's not something that's mystical or magical or miraculous even. It's a return to the self, which is always ever present. And so let's say, I have so many people who come to me and they have physical sickness. There's people in their life who have a thing, whatever it is, emotional, mental, physical. And like this is something that's not talked about very often. And this is where, like, this section in the Course in Miracles is so good. Are words needed in healing? No. Because how can we help? How can we heal? How can we be part of the solution instead of the problem? How can we wake up from being afraid of COVID and being afraid of death and being, angry and bitter? And that's obviously not a miraculous state of mind, right? Like when you're walking around with grievances, you've disconnected yourself from the love that you are, from the love that all there is. So I think the thing that we can do is remember the truth for everyone. We can remember that there is only life. So when I meet someone and they're experiencing pain, I know they cut themselves off. It's the only thing that they either are not plugged in, or they blocked up the flow of life. That's it. There's no, that's it. That's how simple healing gets. So so let's say, like, I see you have a light in front of you, right? I can see you have a light on you. Let's say that light's not plugged in and you're sitting in the dark right now. Would you pray for the light to be turned on?
I would turn it on.
You would plug it in. Yeah, exactly. You would say, okay, the light's not the problem. My life is not the problem. The body's not the problem. It's just that I'm not plugged in. So I think everyone who's experiencing suffering, and suffering is anything that's not perfect peace and joy, check in with yourself and say, okay, wow, is the problem with life? Or am I just not plugged into it? You'll realize, oh, I wasn't plugged in. I wasn't plugged into love. I've been hanging out in bitterness and anger and judgment and loneliness. And when you're not plugged in, the appliance doesn't work. It doesn't. So when people go, my body doesn't work, I'm like, no kidding. You're not plugged in. No kidding, it's not working. Plug it in. And so, like, when you have, let's say, a river that's, we have these laws, gravity, electricity, they're always working. Awareness is always working. Life is always working. It's love is. So let's just say that a river is flowing and all of a sudden there's rocks in the way. What happens to the river? It doesn't flow anymore. It's like, so you wouldn't say, oh, the river's not working. You just go, like, what are those animals that build the dam? The beavers.
A beaver.
Right. So they build and they block the river. And the river, what does the river do? It has to go around. It's trying. It's doing everything it can. But you begin to see that it's like, oh, the only thing that's actually happening here is there's some blocks in the way of the love that I am, the life that I am. Okay, let me see. Let me look at that. Okay, yep, I have some grievances for sure. Block in the river. I definitely have judgments. Block in the river. So you can, so now the symbols literally they start to go like, oh, I don't need, I mean, again, I have so much love. Jesus is totally, I literally have Jesus everywhere. Like, I have all these, I have, Bill actually had, this was a birthday gift to me. This is just like cards, but I have the original, this is ballpoint pen that my friend Nathan Lorenzano made for Bill. Actually commissioned this for my birthday, but I have Jesus everywhere. So I have respect and love for the man, but I don't call on Jesus anymore. I don't, because I now know that we are all one with that mind that was in the man Jesus. So that's the second coming. That's what it means to accept Christ. Is it means that I accept my true identity, which is formless, eternal, changeless. The non-dual path calls it awareness, consciousness. You can call it life. You can call it love. That's what we are. And when you're connected and plugged in, it's working. Everything works. Everything starts working again. It's like, oh, okay. Like, no matter what happens in the world, I know what I am. And because I know what I am, I know what you are. So it gives a different, it means that I show up in a certain way, only expressing the love of God. It's all there is. I remember Wayne Dyer, one of the first teachings I ever heard when I was probably in that book when I was 21. He said, if you squeeze an orange, you only get orange juice. You don't get apple juice. So if love is what we are, it's the only thing that can come out. So if there's something else coming out, if I'm pure love, but bitterness is coming out, what's happening here? Like what's actually happening? And what's happening is that I made an image of myself, believed it to be true, and I'm acting out the character that I created. Like, okay, I have to be bitter, and I have to like hold grievances because it will protect me. It will keep me safe. It will get me what I need. We built up these rules. And when you begin, and that's why I love the non-dual teachings, because they showed me in a logical way, in a different way from A Course in Miracles. Not that it's better or different or whatever, where I actually could see I could see things in a new way that were very down to earth and practical. So
we have a few minutes left, and I've watched you in action, and I have learned again that we can remove all symbols. We can be willing to let go of all beliefs. I've learned from you and in sitting in this space that healing takes no time.
Mm-hmm.
That the goal is not to heal the physical body per se, but to heal and move into wholeness, our experience of ourself, that which sits underneath the symbol, underneath the words, underneath the beliefs and the grievances and the anger and the frustration, that all is like surface. And when we're willing to slip underneath it, a miracle change in perception. We don't have to delay. And so much of my intention in showing up here in these podcasts, and actually everywhere I show up, every time I pick up the phone, every time I show up for a meeting, my intention is to sit in that space and invite others in, right? And that I've watched you do that work, and you and I both know that you receive letters and cards all the time, people that don't quite understand it, but somehow that they know that their burdens have been lifted, right? Because again, the burdens are the symbols. There are beliefs. There are a belief that that I'm here in my problem, in my stuff, and I need to follow that path, and then maybe someday.
Mm-hmm.
But everything that we're doing in the living in one experience, everything that we do when we sit underneath, is understanding that that healing occurs only now, right? So I've watched you do this. And before we say goodbye, what I'd like to do right now, I have a feeling you'll say yes, is that I'm going to come to you right now. And I've heard I have all the voices in my head, Lisa, of all of our friends, all the people we've loved, that when we sit in the various meetings and the Q&As, and when we've done all of our Facebook Lives together, right? And I hear their voices, and they say something like, Lisa, help me, please. I am in chronic pain. Lisa, please help me. The cancer's back. Lisa, please help me. The doctors tell me the cancer's gone, but I don't believe them. And I am waking up in the middle of the night petrified that it's coming back. Lisa, I am miserable. I've watched you walk individuals through that process. And then I've watched others say, oh my God, you were talking to me. And I felt the lifting, and it'd be kind of cool. Will you do that now? Can you walk us through that experience for that person right now who's listening, who somehow thinks that they are stuck in the chronic pain or in the fear of a diagnosis? Can you help us? Can you do
Well,
that?
the first thing I want to say is I've watched you, Cyndi, and what I want to say is thank you, because I receive so many messages from people who say, I'm here because of Cyndi Krupp. So I want to say thank you. You are such a joy to be around. For those of you who, don't know, Cyndi and I, we actually work not super closely together, but we have each other's texts, and, we make each other laugh, and Cyndi will send me messages that will say, oh, it's I love Lisa Natoli Day. I love us day. And, it can be that simple where each one of us can really recognize that we have the power and the ability to reach another just by being there, just by being ourselves. So for just to kind of meet the request, what you just said, like for anybody who needs healing, is I think it's important. And again, we go back to my man Jesus here, because he really did, as a man, as a man 2,000 years ago, demonstrated how healing works. And so I'm somebody who's really looked at how he did it. He never did hands-on. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but he knew who he was. He knew his oneness with life, with God. He knew, so all he ever said was, I and the Father are one. And it is not I, but the Father in me that does the work. And then he gave us the Lord's Prayer and said, Our Father. So he was always saying, it's not my Father, it's our Father, which is our true identity. So Lisa doesn't do the healing. So when I say I am a healer, I'm speaking of I am. Like the I am is the healer. And so I guess for everyone, just to close your eyes and rest. I want you to just rest. You don't have to do anything. I'm also not doing anything. Just resting. And we know that this life, this power, this love is doing its mighty work now. It has always been whole. It's always been here. It's what you are. It's working perfectly. And it's working even if you think you're doing everything wrong. This light, this love, this awareness, this consciousness, it cannot be stopped. You can't stop it with your thoughts. You cannot do it wrong. And so in this moment, I'm simply reminding you that this life is aliveness. This is a light. Course in Miracles calls it my holiness. And this holiness, this innocence, this pure presence of what you are is just by your focusing on it right now, just resting and considering that this light within you is just flowing. And now open your eyes, because you don't need your eyes closed for something like this, because it's doing what it's doing. It's perfect. And we know that whatever difficulties you're experiencing, whatever pain, whatever problems, whatever has been something that you wish would be healed, we now know that it is dissolving. And we stay in awareness of our true nature, our pure innocence, our one self. And we say thank you. And my suggestion to everyone now is live in the healing. And what that means is that to stay in gratitude, to stay in appreciation, to stay in love. I remember I had a teacher. I went to this place called Endeavor Academy in Wisconsin for 10 years. It was an academy for A Course in Miracles. I moved there. I gave all my stuff away, and I lived there for 10 years. And he used to always say to us, stay together and stay in love. That's kind of all we need to know, right? Stay together and stay in love. And that's it. Like we can stay together. We are together and stay in love. And so that for anybody who's been living out of love for a while, you've been living in grievances and fear, you might even not know what that looks like at first, but you just say, okay, I can try that. I can. And, for all the people you mentioned, Cyndi, on the calls, I have to let every moment show me what to say or do. I don't have a formula. I don't have somebody comes to me and says, I have cancer.
Well, we know this whole hour has been about it not being the word or not being the process, but the stillness, exactly. The isness, the consciousness that sits underneath it.
All I ever do is remind someone of the truth of what they are. That's all I ever do. And sometimes I don't do it with words out of my mouth. Sometimes I just do it in my mind. I see someone's really in fear. And in my mind, all I see is their perfect perfection and wholeness. And because minds are joined, they hear me. I know they hear me. The mind hears it. Maybe I didn't say it physically and they didn't hear it physically, but they heard me. And that's all I do. I just live right there. I see only wholeness.
So it is crazy that it's been about an hour that we've been together. Every time you and I connect, it's like I close my eyes and I open it and an eternity has passed in joy. Mm-hmm. I want to ask everyone who's here with us now to take a moment, breathe in, claim the experience they just had. A big part of the living in oneness experience is that it's yours. And all you have to do is be willing to choose. You don't even have to believe, you don't have to know what's going on. But as you sink into this beauty, this love, this peace that sits under the symbols, under the words, you can accept it, just like Lisa was talking about. Just accept it and claim it. And please, you're here because you've been called, because you've said yes, even if you don't know what you're saying yes to. So we would love to know what's going on for you right now. We would love to know how you connected to what was just shared, positive and negative. If this triggered you, by the way, if this triggered you, that's phenomenal, because that means there's something letting go. So be happy with that, but let us know, right? We want to hear from you. We want you, there are opportunities. I'm sure there's a link here somewhere that you could join. You could join our party. You could be part of our community and what we're doing. And man, I just love that you're here. I love us. I love you, Lisa. Do you have any final words?
I just love that you say that. I love us. I love us day. Every day, every day is I love us day.
So my sisters, I have two sisters. We live in 3 different states. And in my world, we have a book study, just the three of us. And you picked our current book, by the way. We're doing The Greatest Secret.
Oh, I love that book.
Your recommendation. But at
Rhonda
the end of that, I always say, I love us. And then my one sister heard me say it to others, and she's like, oh no, I was going to make bracelets. I thought that was just for us. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, Stacey, I say it to everyone, because we are all us, right? We are in this space. There is no being, no spark of light that enters my world that I don't open my heart for. Anything else, Lisa? Should we let people go on to their day?
Yeah, I'm just grateful everyone's here also, and I really love the podcast. I just think this is an amazing new format.
I love us. And
I love us. Love you guys. Thank you for watching.
Looking forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye till next time.